Um, Kamusta?
Pagod, ma'am.
Pagod. So, are you ready to present and tell us what you learned from the activity? Huh? So, was the activity hard or was it just so-so, guys?
Ma'am, mahirap po siyang hindi, para sa akin ma'am, mahirap po siyang intindihin kasi medyo medyo tricky yung this is not pipe, pero yung painting is pipe. Pero yung process sa ma'am ng painting, yeah, madali lang naman.
Anong mahirap intindihin? Sorry, a little bit choppy.
Yung ibig sabihin nun ma'am ng proseso, like ma'am yung painting nga, 'di ba? This is not a pipe, na pipe, pero yung painting is a pipe. So medyo mahirap po siyang intindihin para sa akin. Pero yung
Okay,
process ma'am ng painting, madali lang.
okay. How about others? What do you think about um the activity? Hello? Everyone here is guys. I don't know why where the girls are. Oh, isa lang pala yung babae sa inyo. So, how about others? It was interesting, ma'am, and it was manageable. All right. So, are you ready to show me your works? Or, wait. Before I'm going to uh, let you um, talk about your works and show you about your works, have you ever encountered the term mimesis?
In paintings, ma'am.
Yes. Or in philosophy, have you encountered um, Plato, Aristotle, Nemesis, the treachery of images, Republic, the allegory of the cave? Have you encountered this term?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you remember it? Can you tell me about little about that? That would be our lecture for today. So that's in relation to what you did and what we're going to lecture for today. Can you tell me what you remember from that, guys? No?
No, ma'am.
Yes. Mr. Brian, can you turn on your camera?
Oh, sorry, mabagal po yung internet, pero I'll just
Okay.
recite na lang. So, isa po dun sa na-encounter ko with Mimesis is for example with Plato sa Allegory of the Cave, wherein ayun nga yung story is that 'di ba yung may mga nakahang na lalaki tapos yung nakikita lang nila is yung shadow. So basically Mimesis is kind of like um representation of something na ayun nga in nature. So ayun, dun sa may allegory yung symbolize dun is yung shadows nung objects na dumadaan na nagpa-pass through dun sa may light. So,
Mm.
ayun po.
Okay. So basically, the allegory of the cave is like a story made by Plato to reflect on what it's like to on how to explain what is reality and what is imagination. And it is connected somehow to fine arts because it's mostly about the images that we create through through trying to mimic or trying to paint exactly how we see things. But like I said before, what we actually see is different from others, right? But with Plato, what he sees is always constant. He believes that everyone sees the same. And he is actually against the difference of opinions, and he is against with democracy, and he prefers monarch rule or tyrant rule, or yeah. So that is with Plato. So I'm going to show you a YouTube video to explain more about this, and then hopefully this will help you reflect on what on the exercise that I gave you. All right? Oh, wait lang. Oh my god. So, wait lang. It's not loading. Wait lang, wait lang. So, I'm going to share my screen. So, can you see my screen? Okay, so
What is reality? Knowledge, the meaning of life. Big topics you might tackle figuratively, explaining existence as a journey down a road or across an ocean, a climb, a war, a book, a thread, a game, a window of opportunity, or an all too short-lived flicker of flame. 2,400 years ago, one of history's most famous thinkers said life is like being chained up in a cave, forced to watch shadows flitting across a stone wall. Pretty cheery, right? That's actually what Plato suggested in his Allegory of the Cave, found in Book 7 of the Republic, in which the Greek philosopher envisioned the ideal society by examining concepts like justice, truth, and beauty. In the allegory, a group of prisoners have been confined in a cavern since birth, with no knowledge of the outside world. They are chained facing a wall, unable to turn their heads, while a fire behind them gives off a faint light. Occasionally, people pass by the fire carrying figures of animals and other objects that cast shadows on the wall. The prisoners name and classify these illusions, believing they're perceiving actual entities. Suddenly, one prisoner is freed and brought outside for the first time. The sunlight hurts his eyes, and he finds the new environment disorienting. When told that the things around him are real, while the shadows were mere reflections, he cannot believe it. The shadows appeared much clearer to him, but gradually his eyes adjust until he can look at reflections in the water, at objects directly, and finally at the sun, whose light is the ultimate source of everything he has seen. The prisoner returns to the cave to share his discovery, but he is no longer used to the darkness and has a hard time seeing the shadows on the wall. The other prisoners think the journey has made him stupid and blind and violently resist any attempts to free them. Plato introduces this passage as an analogy of what it's like to be a philosopher trying to educate the public. Most people are not just comfortable in their ignorance, but hostile to anyone who points it out. In fact, the real-life Socrates was sentenced to death by the Athenian government for disrupting the social order, and his student Plato spends much of the Republic disparaging Athenian democracy, while promoting rule by philosopher kings. With the cave parable, Plato may be arguing that the masses are too stubborn and ignorant to govern themselves. But the allegory has captured imaginations for 2,400 years because it can be read in far more ways. Importantly, the allegory is connected to the theory of forms developed in Plato's other dialogues, which holds that, like the shadows on the wall, things in the physical world are flawed reflections of ideal forms, such as roundness or beauty. In this way, the cave leads to many fundamental questions, including the origin of knowledge, the problem of representation, and the nature of reality itself. For theologians, the ideal forms exist in the mind of a creator. For philosophers of language viewing the forms as linguistic concepts, the theory illustrates the problem of grouping concrete things under abstract terms. And others still wonder whether we can really know that the things outside the cave are any more real than the shadows. As we go about our lives, can we be confident in what we think we know? Perhaps one day a glimmer of light may punch a hole in your most basic assumptions. Will you break free to struggle towards the light, even if it costs you your friends and family? Or stick with comfortable and familiar illusions? Truth or habit? Light or shadow? Hard choices, but if it's any consolation, you're not alone. There are lots of us down here.
So, what do you think about the short animation, guys?
Well, welcome. I'm Dr. Kleiner, and I'm your philosophy professor for the day.
Sorry. Guys, are you still there? Hello?
Hi.
So, okay, you like the animation, the art style. What else? What about what you learned through that short animation? Do you like it, or do you have any questions for me? Do you
For
have
me po, ma'am, I've just learned a lot about lights and how lights and shadows affect people with their perception.
Mhm. And can we go deeper on that besides the lights and the shadow? What does the light mean, for example? And what does the shadows symbolize? Guys?
For the light, I think it symbolizes the color of it. It interprets the object more clearer, and the shadows are actually like the form that makes the object three-dimensional.
Okay. How about others? The does other does anyone have any more insights? Guys? Wala.
For me, ma'am, yung bale, ang naintindihan ko is lahat ng tao is may iba't ibang representation sa isang bagay or isang object na hindi lahat pabor sa'yo or hindi lahat yun rin yung naintindihan.
Mhm.
Yun, ma'am.
What else? How about others? None. So, to cut off the chase, the light, yeah, Cesar said, wait lang. According to Cesar, the light symbolizes truth and realism, and the shadow can symbolize abstract and non-physical things. This is closer to the truth. So, for Socrates or Plato, the light symbolizes what's real. It is the truth, and it is what we see out there. While the shadows can symbolize what is the ideal, the stereotypes, the types of beauty that we want. So, an example, how about, for example, the type of man, for example. People would like the ideal beauty of a man is maybe tall, uh, bulky, or have muscles, have abs, uh, angular face, muscular. Um, what else? What other ideals do you have for a man? But in real, what is real, or what is that is the ideal kind of beauty of a man, right? But what is the truth is man can also have a daddy bod, or can also have a stomach. Most of the men aren't that built or aren't that muscular, for example. So that is what is reality and what is ideal. So for Plato, the shadow, or the in the allegory of the cave, what these prisoners see are those ideals. They see these ideals, and then the one prisoner came out and saw what is real and accepted it and liked it. And when he went to tell the prisoners, for example, what should be the beauty of a man, or what should the man be, like for example, a regular type of man is okay, for example, these prisoners would say, no, that's not okay, and stuff like that. So do you get what I mean? That sometimes we think things of the ideal. We prefer the ideal rather than what is real. For example, when it comes to pimples, for example, I personally don't like pimples, and if I have a pimple, I would like go really really insecure because for so long I rarely get pimples, and if I do get pimples, it hurts, it's itchy, and it's very, very uncomfortable. And when I look inside a mirror, I feel very, very insecure. And maybe that's because whenever I see social media and stuff, all are smooth skinned and have healthy skin. And so for me, that is the ideal, right? The smooth skin. But what is normal, what in reality is, all of us can have pimples, right? So it's hard to accept what is reality and then prefer the stereotype. Same thing with the government or politics, for example. We prefer the leader to be, or the president to be, for example, eradicate the pandemic or control the cases of COVID-19, and we won't be here and online and be uh, and be going to class instead face to face. But the truth is, it's not like that. The president can only do little, and he cannot actually control what is going on, and he's not God, for example, and he's old, he might be sick or crazy in the head, I'm sorry. um, he has his own limitations, and that is reality. But the ideal is we want a better president, right? And that is the light. I mean, that is the ideal. But in truth is, in the light, it is not actually what is happening. So that is the difference between the ideal and what is reality. So for example, with the president, a lot of people, because of because of his limits, for example, the president, people would like to criticize him, would like to tell him that it's bad, go go away from the, I know, and that's the same with all the presidents, right? If they don't do right, people would always have a criticism because they want their deal rather than um, what is reality, and that is true for everyone. So that is Plato's Allegory of the Cave, and so and how that is our um, lecture for today. So our lecture for today is about mimesis, um, the opaque and the translucent objects. But with here, what is opaque and translucent is subjective. It is not. It should not be taken literally. So before I'm going to discuss on this further, I want you to show everyone what you've done. All right, can you show us um, your works? Who wants to go first? Guys. Hello. Do you want to share your screen or I'm going to share the screen?
Kayo na lang ata po, ma'am.
Ako na lang. Okay lang din if it's a work on progress. Pero okay, let me share some parts of your work. Wait lang. Here. So this is Carlos. So just to what am I sharing? Just to have an overview, my instructions was to make a painting based on Plato's theory on mimesis and Magritte's painting, This Is Not a Pipe. So I asked you to paint whatever object you have or you see as realistically as possible. And when I say realistically as possible, this includes all kinds of shadows, 5 kinds. That means cast shadow, what other kinds of shadow? Cast shadow, the blur shadow, and you get it. At the bottom of the object, you have to put a phrase exactly like Magritte's, that this is not a pipe, or something like that, or in whatever language you prefer. The material is, it should be in canvas, and you have to use acrylic paint. And then I also asked you to read more of this with links below. And then you also have to have a reflection or comment on what you did for at least 250 words. All right. So, okay. Student work. Oh, wait lang. So, for Carlos, this is what you did. This is not canvas. Anyway, so this is what you did. This is not a speaker. This is not a lampshade. This is not a sofa. Esto na hasta vela. Hindi ito sombrero. So I think you misunderstood. So Let's see. So the idea of mimesis is that the art imitates nature, and everything we see today is just an imitation of nature. So, okay. So let's move on to Tyrone. So Tyrone made this a pencil. Mhm. Hindi po ito lapis. Alright. So what Tyrone made is a pencil. So Tyrone, you have to comment below on what you think about the what you did. Alright.
Ma'am, pwede ihabol ko na lang. Di pa po kasi tapos.
Okay, okay. Can you explain what how did you find or what you how can you reflect on what you did?
At that time, ma'am, bale naghahanap ako ng mga objects dito sa bahay na madali makita yung 5 shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So, first yan yung una ko hong nakita na meron siyang highlight, meron siyang uh, mid-tone, tas reflective shadow, ay reflective light.
Mm-hmm.
Yun. Actually, ma'am, wala kong masyadong naisip na meaning before ko hong gawin yan.
Okay. So let's move on. I'll tell you later. So obviously you just did what I asked you to do, and it is flattering for me, but at the same time I want you to think of why I did it or why I asked you to do it. So this is uh, Joseph's. So it is really, really great. You could see the likeness of the apple. So he said that um, it could give the viewer a vision of representation of something. Others would view it as not being authentic to the actual object. It is true. Um, hindi ito mansanas. It looks like an apple, but it is not really an apple, but rather it is an image of an apple. Does that make sense? So that is what is he's trying to do. So wait lang, let's turn into other. This is not the object itself. So what is it, Ariel? What kind of plant is this?
But that, hindi ko po alam kung anong plant po yung ano.
Okay.
Basta nahanap ko na sa harapan. And I think I was thinking that it looks great and worth painting of. So I didn't know that I should put this is not a flower pot. Sorry. I misunderstood the instructions. I just followed it na put that is not the object, so I put just not the object itself. Instead of that's not a flower pot. Or a plant.
So really you should really think more, guys. When I give you an instruction, you should not blindly follow that instruction, but rather you should also think why I asked you to do this and what is the purpose that I asked you to do this and stuff. So, as artists, I want you to be an artist, as future artist or professional artist. I want you to be those artists who does not blindly follow what others tell them to do, but rather also have um, that attitude of thinking for yourself, and you have to go beyond the box besides my instructions. And kasi when it comes to for example, you're going to be asked for commissions, sometimes the people who would ask for your commission for a commission is not exactly sure what they want, so you have to be able to give in to that, or you have to able to deliver to what um, the person wants. So because they are not artists, of course, that's why they ask artists to commission. So when I and so it's the same with what I'm trying to tell you, and how, and also my instructions, that if I ask you to do something, you should not always blindly follow what I asked you. Although I'm very, very flattered that you're very, very um, obedient to what I asked, but please, for the sake of your future, do not blindly follow what I ask. And you also have to ask the right questions and think the right answers. Okay? And also Ariel, oh, that was for everyone, okay. And Ariel, this is very good. I actually like how you made use of the texture here. There's a little bit texture, but and also how the blue is complementary to the orange. But the thing is, the orange is very, very bright that it makes the blue recede to the background instead. But I like how you also improved on your shading. See? So before you could not shade oops, what did I do? Before you could not shade that well. And um you're learning to with the paint, to blend with the paint. But I hope you also did some time to actually do a lettering on this. I know you could do it, but for me, this is really good. And yeah,
Needed to practice my calligraphy lang po, ma'am.
yes, you have to practice. And also with the shadings, okay? And think about our color theory from we discussed it from the first year, and now you're in your second, and that would be always constantly be used as an artist, even on how you are going to dress up. You also have to use the color theory. That actually helps a lot, to be honest. So lastly, Cesar, Julian. Okay, this is not a cap. All right. Ooh, I like the pink and the blue color. It complements each other. But Julian, you have to practice more on shading. I understand that. I'm glad that you were able to use the how the pigments, on how to make the pigments transparent and stuff. Now you have to practice more on how to blend colors. For example, this is blue, just one color blue, right? Next, you have to practice on adding a different shade of blue to make it look more or have more shadows, and also maybe some white for the highlights. So I'm glad were able to um, you were able to study or achieve transparency and opacity. So the next challenge for you is to know how to blend colors. All right? And this is not a cab. All right. So that is the last. So um so for that I'm so how did you find the activity? Did you understand what I was trying to say? Guys.
Yes, po.
So I'm just going to give you some notes on so Julian, that was your what second time trying to paint using acrylic, right? So far so good. You just have to learn how to blend. Also the um same with Carlos. Also guys, one thing, yes. And also guys, one more suggestion is that feel free to experiment with your colors. It's good when you experiment. You could learn a lot of things, even the things that I don't tell you to. Okay, I'm going to show you some notes on Plato. I'm going to show you some notes on Plato and Aristotle. It's window here. So bear on me on this. This is a little bit hard to comprehend. So you would learn more about this on your art theory or philosophy class. So this is more on what we discussed earlier on the shadows and what is illusion, what is ideal, what is real, right? So thank you, Ariel. So with mimetic theory, um, there is a basic premise that art is essentially an imitation of nature. So, which means art imitates what is out there. It imitates the human person, imitates the clouds, imitates the trees, and so forth. It imitates nature. So if you try to get the four-letter words of the mimetic theory, which is mime. Mime is, if you remember, um, somewhere in France with the black stripes and the black and white crown. Is it called the black and white? This is with the black and white face paint, and then they try to copy or have imaginary surroundings and stuff.
My
So
mom.
yes, mime. So that is mime from the mimetic theory, mime. So whenever you think of mimetic theory, you immediately remember mime from the word mime. It copies or it imitates. So art therefore copies or imitates nature. Kasi with paintings, paintings are supposed to look just like the real thing. That is from far, far ago. Um, the the a painting is very well done or is of great quality when they look just like the real thing. So so this is the widely had a view on art. Pag when the artist captured the real thing or how the object looks like, it is the most quality or the best of quality painting. So that was during Plato's time. But there is a problem with mimetic theory. For example, how does this handle with music? This music imitates um, nature. How about abstract art? Does it um, imitate nature? And then how about the different kinds of ideas that we have? How about those people who are colorblind, for example, or those people who have astigmatism or mental health conditions um, that they have psychosis, for example, and have hallucinations? How does that imitate nature? So when you say um, mimetic, it means that you have to capture what you actually see, what it really is. Pero that doesn't also explain some other fictional stories, for example, novels or example, Star Trek, monsters out there, werewolves, Harry Potter, for example. That is not um, imitating nature, but rather it is um, making something else. And that is the problem with the phrase that it imitates nature, that art imitates nature. So for Plato, because kasi Plato is essentially, or he's very strict, and he believes that art is really an imitation of nature. So if it imitates nature, then for him it is useless and also potentially dangerous. So why is it dangerous? Why is it useless, for example? So kasi for Plato naman, it is just an imagination. It is not the real thing. So it is useless. And it also is dangerous kasi um, it can, it shows the ideals, right? And Plato doesn't um, want the ideals, but he wants the real thing. And he thinks that the truth or what is reality is um, what is better and good. So that is for Plato. So, ayun. So he said that art was useful because it has no useful purpose in society. This is what Plato thinks. And it is just an imitation of nature. Then therefore it has no intellectual value. Because it just imitates what is out there. And therefore the real thing for him is much more valuable than the imitation. For example, if it is a bag, what is a great bag? For example, a Lacoste bag. The real Lacoste bag, the original Lacoste bag, is far more valuable than the imitation, right? So that is also the same with how Plato thinks. That imitation or the art as an imitation of nature is far less valuable than the real thing. And as also for Plato, art is essentially deceptive. The whole point for him of art is to deceive. Because what artists did is that it mistakes um, what is reality for an imitation. So, what is the real thing? It is copied. So, for him, the copied version would look like the original and the same. So, for him, that is really, really bad. Because it is lying or it deceives artists from the facts or from the truth. And what else? For Plato, art is really, really bad because um, artists are not concerned with the facts or the truth. They don't care. We don't actually care what is the truth or what is real. We want to paint what we think or what we imagine, right? So, and that includes stories, images. So, whether those stories and images are true or bad, or true or wrong, we make them because it's our form of expression. It's our way of it's our creative license to do it. So that's why for Plato, art is deceptive, and for him it is wrong. And at the same time, for Plato, art is also concerned with sensual pleasure. So this includes music, uh, what you see, for example, during his time, for example, there are a lot of paintings of nude women. So it also make the mind hazy and it is not intelligent and it ignores concepts, or rather it does not present concrete concepts, since visual arts are there um, to have the spectator or the audience to understand, or for them to um, lock unlock the message of the artist. So, what is central pleasure here for Plato? It is connected with the allegory of the cave, wherein um, the images of the truth or what is real is constantly being ignored for the ideal. People would always strive for the ideal, and for Plato, that is really bad. And at the same time, to strive for the ideal, for example, cartoons and stuff, um, this is also very bad because it does not produce a very good outcome for society, for learning, for education. I mean, what does cartoons actually can what can cartoons give to society, other than pleasure, for example? So That is why Plato does not like art. So during his time, he does not like art and he actually pushes art away. So at the same time, he says that art is psychologically destabilizing. So um, because people naturally is struggling to master the emotions and sensual urges. So most people, the truth is, most people struggling are constantly struggling with their emotions and trying to reason or intellect. For example, when someone is going through grief, at the same time, this person needs to also arrange the mortuary or the ceremony proceedings for the wake and also the burial, but also that person is grieving. So, in a sense, art is like that. It awakes emotions, but at the same time, it hinders or it makes um, the mind hazy in a way. So, and also, even if uh, people are always struggling with uh, the battle of emotions and reason, for example, with love, you have these sensual urges, but at the same time, your mind is telling you something else. So that is what people are. And it is also the same with art. Because when we see something with art, we see it and we feel something. Sometimes it doesn't make any logical explanation for what we see. We just feel it and we would like it. That's it. So, so that is why Plato does not like art as well, because he thinks it is psychologically destabilizing. For him, kasi, as a philosopher, he does not like emotions. He uh, prefers reason and intellect. So, ayun. And then, with only reason and intellect, that is how he is going to be productive as a part of society. So, ayun. Uh, Plato kasi, or some of the philosophers, they prefer to be logical rather than being emotional. And we artists are very emotional and very sensitive to emotion. But with philosophers, or Plato or Socrates and Aristotle, they would want to be more logical rather than being emotional. Kasi because when they are more logical, they can think clearly. So that's how Plato sees it. And then Plato also doesn't like art kasi art leads to immortality, immorality, immoral. So sometimes he says that art is not concerned with morality, sometimes teaching immoral lessons. For example, um, the Iliad or the travels of Hercules killing people. What else? Kill people, rape, and God actually taking women, innocent women, um, to be their wife. For example, with example of Hades and Penelope, or and other things like that. Or how about Zeus constantly having affairs with his marriage to Hera, for example. So that is status view with Mimesis. It also it also leads to immoral things. It So for example, like a skilled chef, artists are only interested in pleasing the palate, even if it poisons the diner. So sometimes we artists, or most times actually, we are only interested in pleasing the audience, on pleasing people, even if sometimes uh, what we're trying to do is not well with us. I mean, sometimes, well, the world actually prefers us artists to draw something or to paint something very happy, very interesting, and stuff like that. Even if deep inside we're depressed and maybe suicidal or something like that. And that is really, really bad somehow. And so, for people out there, we prefer the ideal, and also art is also like that. We show people what is not ideal. We show people what is ideal, what is beautiful out there that people cannot see. So in that way, people are being deceived from the truth, from what is real. So, and it for him, it gives superficial flavors, or parang different kinds of view. So in a way, it tempts people to do other things than what is right. So art therefore leads to immorality, says Plato. So in that way, since art is dangerous, art is deceptive, art is psychologically unstable, and other things, art therefore is politically dangerous, and it is a threat to common good. So, for example, if people would see an ideal that is um, different, for example, um, wait lang, let me give you an example. For example, Nole Mitangere and El Filibusterismo by Jose Rizal. He wrote a novel which is based on the current, or was the current situation in the Philippines, but all of the characters there are fiction, made of fiction, but somehow that those novels also were the one that inspired Bonifacio and all other heroes, Bayanis, to ask for a revolution, right? So that is how um, art for Plato is can also be politically dangerous. It is good that they ask for revolution for us, for example, because we are Filipinos, but during back then, that is bad for the Spaniards who were colonizing the Philippines back then. So art before, for example, the book of El Filibusterismo and Noli Me Tangere was bad. So therefore, it is a concern for the government. Another example is when violence and sex is portrayed in the media. Um, for example, if um, for example, um, if media would show more of sex education, more on abortion, more on divorce, then historically the trend of society would increase, or would be more favorable to that um, that that ideas. For example, gun rights. For example, people believe about gun or about owning a gun to protect themselves. That became a norm in action movies, in society, for example, and it become embedded on the culture. So a lot of people in America are have a lot of guns or prefer or believe more that they should own a gun. So it becomes part of their culture. So at the same time, it's also the same when Spaniards colonized the Philippines way before. They use art, for example, with paintings, with statues, to um, to spread Catholicism or Christianity, right? And they made art as um, a political weapon to to spread Christianity. And but for the Spaniards back then, it was good, right? But it is also the same with the opposite, with violence, with sex, with rape, with war. It is almost the same. And it is also the same with when you see commercials out there. For example, with Coke or Sprite, when you see advertisements like how Sprite or 7 Up quenches the thirst, or Coke quenches the thirst, but in truth, only water can actually quench the thirst. Kasi, and also how Coke can also be sometimes used to clean toilets. There are a lot of videos. There's also it also has a lot of sugar and other things. So that is how art can also inspire other people to, and also inspire politically dangerous things, and how it can be a threat to common good. Do you understand, guys?
Yes,
So, yes, so far. All right. So, to summarize it, uh, for Plato, art is potentially dangerous because art is deceptive. Sorry. Art is concerned with sensual pleasure. Art is psychologically destabilizing. It art leads to immorality, and art is politically dangerous. But Aristotle um, is his is Plato's most famous student. He's famous kasi he taught Alexander the Great. So for Aristotle, he disagree about Plato, pero he also agreed that art is actually a nemesis, but rather a good art is neither useless nor dangerous, but rather natural and beneficial. And that is also against Plato. So for him, for Aristotle, uh, man is not embodied intellect, longing for the spiritual release of that, but rather an animal among other faculties. So for Plato, um, a man is not wholly logical. He also um, he also recognized that man also has emotion, and these emotions or emotional intellect needed to be released, needed to be pleased, needed to be nurtured. And therefore, with using this, for example, an example of death, um, Plato said that art could be used to uh, help with reason and to create things that is according to his emotion. Gets me. But he does not agree that um, mimesis is mirroring nature, or mimesis is uh, imitating nature. He says that art is not useless because it is natural. It is natural for human beings to copy, and that any human society would um, evolve or would progress and would be very happy if a society would imitate others that are good, for example. Um, and this also includes art, for example. It is natural for children to play pretend, for example. It is natural for people to copy good things, for example, like a pot, a vase. Imagine if only there is only one maker of pot those days, then others don't have. Or imagine now, for example, how laws are not being copied from one country or another. That is, or not being inspired from one country or another. And wholly the country would not be healthy anymore. So, so for Aristotle, he says that art production and training is necessary part of any education because it uses and encourages the imaginative manipulation of ideas. So it makes people think. It makes people imagine concepts that are or new concept that might be beneficial to the government, to society, and for him or himself. So, for example, imagine if our cars would look like um, what ba? A wagon, or what if our cars doesn't run on engine because people are not being able to train to imagine or conceptualize new things. Imagine. So imagine if our houses doesn't have any roof because nobody were able to think about, or nobody was able to conceptualize a roof, for example. Or how about uh, what if um, nobody was able to think of a solution for a vaccine, for example? Nobody was able to conceptualize or invent the formula for a vaccine, for example. Then most of the people today would die. So that's why for Aristotle, art production and training is very important kasi it um, it helps use, or it helps train uh, concept training, or concept, or making up concepts and putting them into good use. Wait lang. So for Aristotle, art is not deceptive. Kasi for art to be deceptive, artists must accurately portray reality to be successful. It is not deceptive if the art does not look this real, right? For example, a cartoon version of a person, Is it deceptive when it looks like cartoonish? It doesn't look like the same person? No. So art is not really dangerous for Aristotle. Sometimes also art is not deceptive because it teaches effectively and it teaches the truth. Um, some some examples here are infographics, um, advertisements to do not text and drive. How about the signs we see on roads, for example? Or how about historical drama in theater? So, in a way, or documentaries. So, in a way, it is not deceptive because it can be used effectively and it could be used in a helpful manner to teach the truth. And also, he believes that of organic unity, that any good work of the art should contribute to the overall success of the whole. So, um, for example, each element, you have your elements of art, right? So each of those elements of your art should contribute to the success of your art. It is not only one, but rather on how to use all your elements in a that would make a very good composition. So that is what you say organic unity. And that he also said that being senseless is not a bad thing. He said that Aristotle is not biased against physical pleasures like Plato did, because one way of acquiring knowledge is through developing one's senses and sharpening those senses through art. And doing that through art was a healthy thing to do. For example, art in painting would help. Um, for then, there is no camera yet, so it helps on painting the likeness of a person, especially when you don't haven't see someone else. And also, how about developing the tone, the music, the ear? So, learning music, for example, you'd learn notes, different kinds of melodies, pitches, harmonies. So, and also, for example, cooking. Cooking can be also be an art, and it could develop one's palette on how to see if this taste would if you combine this from this ingredient and then this another ingredient, it would be delicious or not. So for him, being sensuous is not a bad thing. So being sensuous here, guys, is not sexual. It's not it's not using um it's not what a man and woman do, but rather it's the use of our senses like eyes, ears, hearing, taste, touch, okay? And that the sensual pleasures here is not always be sexual, but rather it could also be intellectual and it could be used as a conceptual affair. Like, for example, how did they know that citronella can naturally repel mosquitoes, for example? So, and how can they use aloe vera to nourish the hair, for example? Or how they use different kinds of pigment to beautify ices, for example. For example, in Egypt, they like eyeliners like these, for example, the cat eyes. So, and Also for Aristotle, art is intentionally tied to morality and truth. For example, when it comes to drama that teaches morality, there are dramas that shows heroes, their tragedies, how psychology and morality can also be involved, and the historical ones. Again. So for Aristotle, mimesis is not imitation or mirroring nature. It is more like rendering, depicting, constructing, idealizing, and representing. Unlike mirroring, mimesis is the acts of intellect. You need to think about your object on how to render or depict it or show it or present it on your paper, on your canvas. So that is why I also told you earlier with your work that you should also think about the exercise and not just um, obediently follow me. Although I'm honestly glad that you followed my instructions, but also with fine arts, you also have to think about my instructions and why I asked you to do these things. So, um, so this is a summary. For Plato, art was deceptive. For Aristotle, art is truthful. For Plato, art is concerned with sensual pleasure. And for Aristotle, is mainly concerned with sensual pleasure, but it is a good thing. For Plato, art is destabilizing. For Aristotle, art is psychologically healthy because it trains people, right? Um, for Plato, art leads to immorality, but for Aristotle, art leads to moral knowledge. For Plato, art is politically dangerous, but for Aristotle, art was politically necessary and healthy. So, for Plato, he likes the tyrant rule or having a dictator rule, for example. But Aristotle, he believes in democracy. He believes on listening to other ideas. He believes on argument, on debating, and stuff like that. So, ayan guys. So, ayan. So, are you okay, guys? Did you understand so far? Do you have any questions for me? Hello?
None.
None? Okay. Let Okay, I'm going to give you another. What is aesthetics? We weren't talking about aesthetics. Aesthetic is different. So, okay, I'm going to I'll show you a little bit slideshow. So, this is not my slide to be honest. But I'm still gonna show you because it has a lot of good um examples. I think this is French, but you can understand it anyway. Most of it is mainly pictures. So again, so la mimesis. So this is what they did in Egypt. So this is their art style in Egypt. So does is it so question does it mimic the people in Egypt? Does it imitate the people in Egypt or their life? Guys, hindi, diba?
Y-
So it shows a little bit of their life. Wait lang. And then, sorry guys. Another example. So it is a representation, not really showing nature or imitating nature. This is how they depict their culture. So, ayan. Tell me if I'm scrolling too fast, alright? So this is their god. I forgot. Anus? What? Anu? Their god. Anubis. Yeah, Anubis. Yeah, you're correct. You're correct. And this is the statues. So if you could see how they have small heads and big bodies. I don't know. And if you can imagine how nobody is fat on these descriptions, you could see how it can also be a product of the ideal. And ayun, also this one, you can also see their headdresses, but you can see how they also have almost the same face, but different body types as well. And this is in Greece. In Greece, they are very what they call this? They're very they believe that the greatest art is the human body. But there is an uh there is irony in that because they also believe that um that they have the golden ratio or golden rule for uh how long the legs should be, how you know how straight should the noses should be and stuff. So yeah. And this is the woman. So this is the evolution of the sculpture in Greece. So from here to here, 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 and here. So one thing you would see is that they're very proud of their male parts. And this is also by Michelangelo. This is Venus. This is Apollo. Mm-hmm. This is a mosaic and how they show animals. Yeah. It looks like a face, but it doesn't look like a true person. I don't know about you guys, but it looks like a monkey or a skull of a monkey. I'm sorry if it's not. And this is how they did the frescoes. And how they do the mimesis. Sometimes they are not perfect with mimesis, like how this is not in proportion to this one. And also their jars and stuff. Jars, frescoes, wall designs. Another one. And then another. So this is another one in Rome. So they definitely got better. So quick fact, Rome imitates the style of Greece, but they became better. And first was Greece, and another was Rome. I mean, second was Rome. I mean, Greece was the first or the start, and then Rome emerged. Ganon. And then I think this is Julius Caesar or Augustus. I'm not sure. So this is timeline on their media, in that media. So this is the first. You can see some angels, trees, horses, offering to gods, how they dress, and also how there is also a different kind of religious element there. So you could see some war in a battle for good and bad, and how this one would win. And there is the version of God. It looks angry. It to me it is. And then this is I know this is how knights are bearers for glory, honor, and light. I think I'm not sure. And then the saints. And then you have this kind of lettering. And another this one. I'm not sure if this is Mary. And you have also the saints. Reenactment. So reenactment. So this is Kyoto. That is in Kyoto. God or sorry, I don't know the story. And this one, two persons kissing each other. How An angel was delivered a message to Moses, I think. And then this is Angelica, Fra Angelica. So this is Mary, no, guardian angel Gabriel. It's delivering Mary the news, the good news. So you can also see the perspective here. And Paulo Solo. This is another kind of story. And then there's the Holy War, or the war on conquering countries for the sake of Christianity. And this is also about, sorry, my boss is itchy. This is by Raphael. The paper. Sorry, I think I'm having an allergy.
Bless you.
Thank you. I think I'm having allergy. I will take medicine later. This is by Raphael. The painter Raphael. So, ayun. You can see the perspective and the depth. This is by Botticelli. Oh, Giotto before was a painter as well. Sorry, I was confused. This is also by Botticelli, delivering a guardian angel delivering the good news to Mary. And then this is in India. So ayun, how they have weird skulls. So apparently they haven't studied or developed the idea of skulls before. Or so this is in India. This is how the art looks like. And this is Krishna, right? With different hands and his color blue. So how Krishna got is from the lake, and the lotus lake came from the lotus, and yeah. And sorry, I forgot the name of this god. So again, so this is in by Delacroix naman. There is another painter, and this is in France. Sorry, this is France. And this is for liberty, I think, finding liberty. And forgot the title of the book. And this is almost the same by Jerry Cult, for freedom also. No, we went to Greece, we went to Rome, and now we're in France. We were in India, now we're in France. And this is another showing Nightmare. This is in romantic period. And this is Monet. Monet is Dutch, I think. So this is the use of pigment, so use of light, more on using of light or use of pigment. So there are no lines, but just pigments. So this is Impressionism. Another example of Impressionism. Another example of Impressionism. And then you also have Cubism by Picasso. So, sorry. Let's. How many more? And this is Cubism by Picasso. This is the African ladies prostitutes. So, ayan. And this is G something. I got. This is also about war. Another form of Cubism. And this is Crying Lady. Another form of Cubism by Picasso. And I'm sorry, I don't know what this is. I I think this is also Picasso. So Picasso was not always um, Cubism, and this is also by Magritte. So we're in surrealist painting now. So this is Magritte, a picture within a picture, and this is Dali. Oh, Magritte is Dadaism, and Dali is surrealism. So he sorry. So he's known to um produce images that is surrealistic or dreamlike. So you have various figures that looks like it's in a dream. It's not true, but it looks like true, and it has symbolism as well. On they symbolize something or a meaning. Again, this is a sketch. And another example by Dali, Salvador Dali. Another one about God or Jesus, how he got from the cross and for the world. And then this is pop art. So you have the Death of Captain America by Don Buckley. So another version of pop art. So you have perspective. So this is a comic by Asterisk. And another version of Rome, but in pop art style. Another example. And then you have Nantes. This is cultural art. That is horrifying. So another one. Another one. Another one. Let's look like a face. It is a face. Another kind of face. And this one is an old, I don't know, painting. This is by Da Vinci, La Ultima Cena, The Last Supper. Another by Dali, The Last Supper. And by The Simpsons. So there you have it, your Mimesis. Mimesis again is what? What have you learned today, guys? Hello.
Mimesis is just a representation of the actual object or subject.
Okay. Very good. So that's all for today. The next would be chiaroscuro. I want you to research on Rembrandt and chiaroscuro. And then next week, we're going to have a meeting again. And then we're going to discuss. And then you're going to paint again. So next week, we're just going to have a short lecture on chiaroscuro. And then you have to, and that half of the time, you're going to continue start painting. So prepare your materials for next week. All right, guys, is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
also prepare a portrait that shows a very big contrast of light and dark. All right.
Can we search portraits po or it has to be our own portrait po?
You can search, but remember when you search or have a reference of a painting, you have to um, uh, tell who was your copyright, where did you get that reference, who was the artist who got that painting or who got that photo, for example. But you could also make use of your own. So, ayun. Wait lang. Para mas interesting, I'm going to give you um, a theme and then you're going to make your own according to the theme. Is that possible or is it very hard? So you're going to make a painting out of the theme.
Portrait painting out of the theme po?
Yes. So, are you game? Pa? I cannot properly hear you. Anong can you chat it or put it in the chat box? Like it's a little bit um choppy. There's static on the phone or on the mic. Hello. Self-portrait lang po muna gagayahin. I won't parang I think I'm going to leave the self-portrait for figure drawing too. And I think you're not ready for self-portrait yet. So I'm going to give you uh, a theme that includes objects instead. All right. So it won't be self-portrait, but you could choose to do self-portrait, but that is up to you. The most important for me is whether you deliver the exercise well or not. So I'm going to give you a theme. I'm going to grade you according to rubrics, but how you will do will be the most important. So it could be one, no, it could be two or more objects as long as it delivers or it has relevant to the topic, which is chiaroscuro. So if a little bit insight on chiaroscuro, so usually it involves a very light, a harsh lighting and a very, very dark background. So you have to prepare for that. You could set up your studio, or you could set up a little photo session. You could use your hand, you could use your feet, you could use whatever, but according to the theme. So, and you could also use objects as long as it is according to the theme. All right?
Paano yung mga parts ng katawan po namin, ma'am, na i-drawing po, i-paint po namin?
Kahit ano, like I said, as long as it is relevant to the theme. And it has to be original. All right? All right, Ariel.
Sure po, ma'am.
I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to dismiss you early. So, class dismissed. Thank you guys. See you tomorrow. Next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Ito lang, ma'am.